All right, this is video 2, continuing chapter 1, and Grandpa had just told them to stay out of the woods. And if they went there, they'd spend the rest of their stay in their room. Here we go from there. Okay, Seth said, crossing the room to where a little easel stood on a paint-spattered tarp. A blank canvas rested on the easel. Additional blank canvases leaned against the wall nearby, beside shelves stocked with jars of paint. Can I paint? I'm telling you twice, you have the run of this room, Grandpa said. Just try not to destroy it. I have many chores to attend to, so I may not be around much. There should be plenty of toys and hobbies here to keep you busy. What about a TV? Seth asked. No TV. Or radio, Grandpa replied. Rules of the house. If you need anything, Lena will never be far. He indicated a purple cord hanging against the wall near one of the beds. Tug the cord if you need her. In fact, Lena will be up with your supper in a few minutes. Won't we eat together? Kendra asked. Some days. Right now, I need to visit the field, the East Hayfield. May not be back until late. How much land do you own? Asked Seth. Grandpa smiled. More than my share. Let's leave it at that. I'll see you kids in the morning. He turned to leave and then paused, reaching into his coat pocket. Turning back, he handed Kendra a tiny key ring holding 3 miniature keys of varying sizes. Each of these keys fits something in this room. See if you can figure out what each unlocks. Grandpa Sorensen walked out of the room, closing the door behind him. Kendra listened as he descended the stairs. She stood at the door, waiting, and then gently tried the handle. It turned slowly. She eased the door open, peered down the empty stairway, and then closed it. At least he hadn't locked them in. Seth had opened a toy chest and was examining the contents. The toys were old-fashioned, but in excellent condition. Soldiers, dolls, puzzles, stuffed animals, wooden blocks. Kendra wandered over to a telescope by a window. She peered into the eyepiece, positioned the telescope to look through a window pane, and began twisting the focus knobs. She could improve the focus, but could not get it quite right. She stopped fiddling with the knobs and examined the window. The panes were made of bubbly glass, like those in the front of the house. The images were being distorted before they reached the telescope. Unfastening a latch, Kendra pushed the window open. She had a good view of the forest east of the house, illuminated by the golden hues of the setting sun. Moving the telescope closer to the window, she spent some time mastering the knobs, bringing the leaves on the trees below into crisp focus. And now the words are out of focus. Let me see, Seth said. He was standing beside her. Pick up those toys first. A mess of toys lay piled near the open chest. Grandpa said we can do whatever we want in here without making it a disaster. You're already wrecking the place. I'm playing. This is a playroom. Remember how Mom and Dad said we need to pick up after ourselves? Sisters, man, come on. Remember how Mom and Dad aren't here? I'll tell. Typical. How? Stick a note in a bottle? You won't even remember by the time they get back. Kendra noticed a calendar on the wall. I'll write it on the calendar. Good, and I'll look through the telescope while you do that. This is the one thing in the room I was doing. Why don't you find something else? I didn't notice a telescope. Why don't you share? Don't Mom and Dad tell us to share? Fine, Kendra said, it's all yours, but I'm closing the window. Bugs are coming in. Whatever. Seth shut the window. Seth looked into the eyepiece and started twisting the focus knobs. Kendra took a closer look at the calendar. It was from 1953. Each month was accompanied by an illustration of a fairyland palace. She turned the calendar to June. Today was June 11. The days of the week did not match up, but she could still count down to when her parents would return. They would be back June 28. This stupid thing won't even focus, Seth complained. Kendra smiled. Chapter 2, Collecting Clues. The next morning, Kendra sat at breakfast across from her grandfather. A wooden clock on the wall above him read 8:43. Reflected sunlight flashed in the corner of her eye. Seth was using his butter knife to bounce sun rays. She was not seated close enough to the window to retaliate. Nobody likes the sun in their eyes, Seth, Grandpa said. Seth stopped. Where's Dale? He asked. Dale and I got up a few hours ago. He's out working. I'm just here to keep you company on your first morning. Lena set a bowl in front of Seth and another in front of Kendra. What's this? Seth asked. Cream of wheat. I used to eat that when I was a kid. Lena replied. Sticks to your ribs, Grandpa added. Seth probed the cream of wheat with the spoon. What's in it, blood? Berries from the garden and homemade raspberry preserves. I didn't get any of that on mine. I got sugar, a little bit of sugar. Lena said, placing a platter on the table containing toast, butter, a pitcher of milk, a bowl of sugar, and a bowl of jam. Kendra sampled the cream of wheat. It was delicious. The berries and raspberry preserves sweetened it to perfection. This is good, Seth said. Just think, Dad is eating snails. You kids remember the rules about the woods, Grandpa said? And to stay out of the barn, Kendra said. Good girl. There's a swimming pool out back that we got ready for you. All the chemicals are balanced and whatnot. There are gardens to explore. You can always play in your room. Just respect the rules and we'll get along just fine. When is Grandma coming back? Kendra asked. Grandpa glanced down at his hands. That depends on your Aunt Edna. Could be next week. Could be a couple of months. Good thing Grandma got over her illness, Kendra said. Illness? The one that kept her from going to the funeral. Oh, right, yeah. She was still a little under the weather when she left for Missouri. Grandpa was acting a little peculiar. Kendra wondered if he was uncomfortable around children. I'm sad we missed her, Kendra said. She's sorry too. Well, I better be off. Grandpa had not eaten anything. He pushed his chair back, stood up, and stepped away from the table, rubbing his palms against his jeans. If you swim, don't forget to wear sunblock. I'll see you kids later. At lunch? Seth asked. Probably not until supper. Lena will help you with anything you need. He left the room. Dressed in her swimsuit, a towel over one shoulder, Kendra stepped through the door onto the back porch. She carried a handheld mirror she had found in the nightstand by her bed. The handle was mother of pearl studded with rhinestones. The day was a bit humid, but the temperature was pleasant. She walked to the railing of the porch and gazed over the gorgeously manicured backyard. Paths of white stones meandered among flower beds, hedgerows, vegetable gardens, fruit trees, and flowering plants. Tangled grapevines curled along suspended lattices. All the flowers seemed to be in full bloom. Kendra had never seen such brilliant blossoms. Seth was already swimming. The pool had a black bottom. It was fringed with rocks to make it seem like a pond. Kendra hurried down the steps and started down a path toward the pool. The garden teemed with life. Hummingbirds darted among the foliage, wings nearly invisible as they hovered. Huge bumblebees with fuzzy abdomens buzzed from one blossom to another. A stunning variety of butterflies fluttered about on tissue paper wings. Kendra passed a small, waterless fountain featuring a statue of a frog. She paused as a large butterfly alighted on the rim of an empty bird bath. It had huge wings, blue, black, and violet. She had never seen a butterfly with such vivid coloring. Of course, she'd never visited a world-class garden. The house was not quite a mansion, but the grounds were fit for a king. No wonder Grandpa Sorensen had so many chores. The path finally deposited Kendra at the pool. Variegated flagstones paved the poolside area. There were a few recliners and a circular table with a big umbrella. Seth leaped from a stone, outcropping into the swimming pool, legs curled up, and hit the water with a big splash. Kendra set her towel and mirror on the table and grabbed a bottle of sunblock. She smeared the white cream over her face, arms, and legs until it disappeared into her skin. While Seth was swimming underwater, Kendra picked up the mirror. She angled the face so it reflected sunlight onto the water. When Seth surfaced, she made sure the bright splotch of sunlight covered his face. Hey, he shouted, swimming away from her. She kept the glare from the mirror on the back of his head, gripping the side of the pool. Seth turned to look at her again, throwing up a hand and squinting to ward off the light. He had to look away. Kendra laughed. Cut it out, Seth called. You don't like that? Quit it. I won't do it anymore. Grandpa already yelled at me. Kendra set the mirror on the table. That mirror is a lot brighter than a butter knife, she said. I bet it already did permanent damage to your retinas. I hope so. Then I'll sue you for $1 billion. Good luck. I have about 100 in the bank. It might be enough for you to buy some eye patches. He swam toward her angrily, and Kendra walked forward to the edge of the pool. As he started climbing out, she shoved him back in. She was almost a head taller than Seth and could usually handle him in a fight. Although if they ended up wrestling, he was pretty squirmy. Seth changed tactics and started splashing her, making quick scooping motions around the surface of the pool. The water felt cold, and Kendra recoiled at first, then leaped over Seth into the water. After the initial shock, she swiftly grew accustomed to the temperature, stroking over to the shallow end away from her brother. He chased her, and they ended up in a splash fight. Locking his hands, Seth swung his arms in wide arcs, skimming the top of the water. Kendra pushed at the water with both hands, a churning motion that generated smaller but more focused splashes. Soon they grew tired. It was hard to win a water fight when both participants were already soaked. Let's have a race, Kendra suggested as the splashing subsided. They raced back and forth across the pool. First, they raced freestyle, then backstroke, breaststroke, and side stroke. After that, they created handicaps, like racing with no arms, or hopping across the width of the shallow end on one foot. Kendra usually won, but Seth was faster at backstroke and some of the handicapped races. When Kendra grew bored, she got out of the pool. Walking toward the table to retrieve her towel, she stroked her long hair, enjoying the rubbery texture as the wetness made the strands cling together. I like when that happens to me too, after my hair gets wet. Seth climbed on top of a big rock near the deep end. Watch this can opener. He jumped with one leg straight and the other bent. Good job, Kendra said to placate him when he surfaced. Placate, that's just like satisfy him. Oh, good job. Shifting her gaze to the table, Kendra froze. Hummingbirds, bumblebees, and butterflies swirled in the air above the handheld mirror. Several other butterflies and a couple of large dragonflies actually rested on the face of the mirror itself. Seth, come look at this, Kendra hissed in a loud whisper. Oh, it was more like this. Seth, come look at this, Kendra hissed in a loud whisper. What? Just come here. Seth boosted himself out of the pool and padded over to Kendra, arms folded. He stared at the cloud of life whirling above the mirror. What's their deal? I don't know, she replied. Do insects like mirrors? These ones do. Look at that red and white butterfly. It's enormous. Same with that dragonfly, Seth pointed out. I wish I had a camera. I dare you to go get the mirror. Seth shrugged. Sure. He trotted over to the table and grabbed the mirror by the handle, dashed to the pool and dove in. Some of the insects scattered instantly. The majority drifted in the direction Seth had gone, but dispersed before reaching the pool. Seth surfaced. Any bees after me? Get the mirror out of the water. You'll ruin it. Settle down. It's fine, he said, stroking over to the side. Give it to me. She took the mirror from him and wiped it dry with her towel. It looks undamaged. Let's try an experiment. Kendra placed the mirror face up on a lounge chair and backed away. Think they'll come back? We'll see. Kendra and Seth sat down at the table, not far from the lounge chair. After less than a minute, a hummingbird glided over to the mirror and hovered above it. Soon, it was joined by a few butterflies. A bumblebee alighted on the face. Before long, another swarm of small winged creatures crowded the mirror. Go turn the mirror face down, Kendra said. I want to see whether they like the reflection or the mirror itself. Seth crept toward the mirror. The little animals took no apparent notice of his approach. He reached forward slowly, flipped the mirror over, and then retreated to the table. The butterflies and bees that had landed on the mirror took flight when it was overturned, but only a few of the winged creatures flew away. Most of the swarm lingered. A pair of butterflies and a dragonfly landed on the lounge chair at the edge of the mirror. Taking flight, they flipped the mirror over, nearly sliding it off the chair in the process. With the reflective surface showing again, the swarm pressed close. Several of the creatures landed on the face. "Did you see that?" Kendra asked. "That was weird," Seth said. "How could they be strong enough to lift it?" "There were a few of them. Want me to flip it again?" "No, I'm scared the mirror will fall off and break." "Okay." He draped his towel over his shoulder. "I'm going to go change." "Would you take the mirror?" "Fine, but I'm running. I don't want to get stung." Seth moved toward the mirror slowly, snatched it, and ran off into the garden toward the house. Part of the swarm gave lazy pursuit before scattering. Kendra wrapped the towel around her waist and picked up the sunblock Seth had left behind and started toward the house. When Kendra reached the attic playroom, Seth was dressed in jeans and a long-sleeved camouflage shirt. He picked up the cereal box that served as his emergency survival kit and headed for the door. "Where are you going?" "None of your business unless you want to come." "How will I know whether I want to come if you don't tell me where you're going?" Seth gave her a measuring stare. "Promise to keep it a secret?" "Let me guess. Into the woods." "Want to come?" "You'll get Lyme disease," Kendra warned. "Whatever. Ticks are everywhere. Same with poison ivy. If people let that stop them, nobody would ever go anywhere." "But Grandpa Sorensen doesn't want us in the woods," she protested. "Grandpa isn't going to be around all day. Nobody will know unless you blab." "Don't do this. Grandpa has been so nice to us. We should obey him." "So you're about as brave as a bucket of sand." "What's so brave about disobeying Grandpa?" "So you're not coming?" Kendra hesitated. "No." "Will you tell on me?" "If they ask where you are." "I won't be long." Seth walked out the door. She heard him tromp down the stairs. Kendra crossed to the nightstand. The handheld mirror rested on it beside the ring with the 3 tiny keys. She'd spent a long time the night before trying to find what the keys fit. The biggest key opened a jewelry box on the dresser that was full of costume jewelry. Fake diamond necklaces, pearl earrings, emerald pendants, sapphire rings, and ruby bracelets. She'd not yet discovered what the other 2 opened. She picked up the keys. They were all small. The smallest was no longer than a thumbtack. Where could she find such a minuscule keyhole? The night before, she had spent most of her time on drawers and toy chests. Some of the drawers had keyholes, but they were already unlocked, and the keys did not fit. Same with the toy chests. The Victorian dollhouse caught her attention. What better place to find tiny keyholes than inside a little house? She unlatched the clasp and opened it, revealing 2 floors and several rooms of miniature furniture. 5 doll people lived in the house: a father, a mother, a son, a daughter, and a baby. The detail was extraordinary. The bed had quilts, blankets, sheets, and pillows. The couches had removable cushions. The knobs in the bathtub really turned. Closets had clothes hanging inside. The armoire in the dollhouse's master bedroom made Kendra suspicious. It had a disproportionately large keyhole in the center. Kendra inserted the tiniest key and turned it. The doors of the armoire sprung open. I'll have to stop there. That's a good place to stop. Right. Till next time.